Everyone rolled their eyes the moment she unveiled her design. The colors were too muted, the lines too soft, and the concept felt, to them, like a throwback from a forgotten decade. "It's outdated," they whispered. "Who would ever want this?" But Amelia stood there with quiet confidence, holding her work like it was gold, because to her, it was. Her design wasn't just a trend, it was a statement, a reflection of something deeper. Still, in the competitive world of fashion where bold and flashy wins attention, her subtle approach was instantly dismissed. At her first showcase, buyers passed her booth without a second glance. Influencers barely looked her way. Even one of the judges chuckled under their breath, muttering something about vintage gone wrong. But what they didn't know was that Amelia had done her homework. She had studied not just trends, but people, their emotions, the way they craved comfort, authenticity, and something that felt familiar in a fast-moving world. Her so-called outdated design was rooted in something timeless. What happened next, though, nobody saw coming. While the others fought to outdo each other with shock value, Amelia's quiet collection began to stir interest in unexpected places. A small boutique placed a trial order. Then a well-known editor wore one of her pieces to a major event. But just when things were starting to shift, an unexpected twist changed everything. And it wasn't from inside the fashion world. Something bigger had just begun. Amelia didn't grow up dreaming of runway lights or flashing cameras. Her world was shaped by her grandmother's quiet hands sewing patterns by the window, old photo albums filled with clothes that told stories, not trends. That's where her love for design started, not with fame, but with feeling. When she enrolled in fashion school, she was already seen as different. While others chased futuristic cuts and loud prints, Amelia turned to texture, emotion, and simplicity. Her classmates often asked why she insisted on using faded linens and hand-drawn sketches. "It's not marketable," one said. "Too plain," said another. But she wasn't trying to impress them. She wanted to connect with the everyday person who didn't want to dress for Instagram, but for themselves. Still, when it came time for the final showcase, she knew the risks. Her collection lacked the dramatic flair the judges loved, and the whispers that day confirmed it. Her display sat nearly untouched for hours. But something shifted when a quiet woman in her 50s paused, ran her fingers along one of Amelia's jackets, and softly smiled. She didn't say anything, just nodded once and walked away. That small moment stayed with Amelia more than the judge's criticism. Days after the event, she received an email with no subject line. Inside, a link, a photo of that woman, standing beside a world-famous editor, wearing Amelia's jacket on a magazine cover shoot. Amelia froze. This wasn't part of the plan. She hadn't even known who the woman was. Something was unfolding, and fast. The photo went viral within hours. Fashion blogs started picking it apart. Woe designed this understated piece. Why does this look feel so familiar yet fresh? The buzz caught Amelia completely off guard. Her inbox filled with questions, and a few boutiques started asking for samples. But as interest grew, so did the pressure. Some offered to help her modernize her work, pushing her to tweak her designs to be more commercial. Even her former classmates reached out, acting supportive but subtly suggesting she'd just gotten lucky. Amelia wasn't sure who to trust. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, a well-known fashion label sent her a flattering but vague offer to buy the rights to her collection. On paper, it looked like a dream deal: money, exposure, even a potential partnership. But something didn't sit right. She read the contract 3 times and noticed the fine print. They wanted full control. Her name wouldn't even be attached. To them, her outdated style was finally marketable, but they didn't want her voice in the room. On top of that, a rumor started spreading. A rival designer claimed Amelia had copied vintage patterns without credit. It wasn't true. She had used inspiration, yes, but every piece was her own. Still, the accusation began making rounds on social media. The same people who had mocked her work now circled like vultures, waiting for her to fall. As the competition prepared for its next season and her name was whispered as a wildcard entry, Amelia had a decision to make: stay silent or fight for her place. The pressure kept mounting. Every step Amelia took felt like walking a tightrope. She spent days holed up in her tiny studio, barely sleeping, sketching new concepts while keeping her designs rooted in the same soulful vintage feel that first caught the world's eye. But the industry was watching now, expecting her to prove that she wasn't just a one-hit wonder. Her phone buzzed non-stop. Interview requests, collaboration pitches, and critics dissecting her every move. And still, the rumor that she had stolen her ideas refused to die down. Each time she refreshed her feed, there was a new comment questioning her authenticity. The wildcard entry into the upcoming global design competition was her only shot at clearing her name on her own terms. But even that came with strings. The judges' panel was stacked with powerful voices, including the creative director of the very brand that had tried to buy her out. Some said the competition was rigged, others warned her that standing out too much could backfire. And then there was the rival designer who accused her, now suddenly announced as a finalist too. Amelia's heart raced as she packed her designs for the big reveal. She had put everything she had into this collection, raw, emotional, unapologetically hers. But a single misstep could crush her momentum. She didn't know who was secretly rooting for her and who was waiting to tear her down. The night before the show, she stared at a faded photo of her grandmother's hands at the sewing machine. Tomorrow, everything would change. The morning of the competition arrived with a bitter twist. Just as Amelia zipped up the final garment on her mannequin, an urgent message flashed on her phone. Someone had leaked her entire collection online. Every design, every sketch, posted publicly without her permission. The images were already making rounds on fashion forums, being praised and picked apart. Panic set in. She was now walking into the biggest moment of her life with the element of surprise completely stolen. She couldn't figure out who did it. The leak was too clean, too calculated. Was it someone on the inside? One of the stylists? Or worse, the rival designer trying to knock her out before she even stepped on the stage? Her trust was already fragile, but this shook her to the core. As she entered the competition venue, whispers followed her. Some congratulated her like the winner had already been chosen. Others gave her a look of quiet pity, assuming her spotlight had burned out before the show even began. The judges were silent, their expressions unreadable. To make things worse, just before the showcase began, the rival designer made an announcement, claiming that Amelia's designs had been copied from a forgotten archive, and presenting vague, outdated samples as proof. The timing was cruel, almost choreographed. Now, Amelia stood behind the curtain, her name about to be called. Her heart pounded. This wasn't just a runway debut anymore. It had become a battle to prove her work, her voice, and her worth in front of the entire world. Amelia walked onto the stage, her breath shaky but her steps steady. The lights were blinding, the room silent except for the sound of her heels tapping against the floor. Her models followed one by one, each piece more stunning than the last. Even though the designs had been leaked, something about seeing them in motion, brought to life with emotion and story, struck the audience differently. There was depth, soul, and unmistakable originality in her work. Gasps filled the room when the final piece appeared, a coat made from restored vintage fabrics, stitched with thread dyed by hand, carrying hidden embroidery in her grandmother's handwriting. The audience rose to their feet. Even the rival designer couldn't mask their surprise. Just as the applause peaked, the head judge took a microphone. He paused, looked directly at Amelia, and said, "Before we crown the winner, we must address the plagiarism claim." The room fell silent. Then he revealed something unexpected. A team of experts had reviewed timestamps, fabric sourcing records, and design drafts. The evidence clearly showed that Amelia's work was not only original, but groundbreaking. The archive her rivals cited, it had been planted by someone on his own team. The rival's disqualification was announced, But the real twist came when a major global brand offered Amelia a full creative director role on the spot, live on stage. She blinked in disbelief. From mocked to celebrated, from doubted to trusted, this moment wasn't just her win. It was her story finally being heard. Amelia stood there, still processing everything as the audience continued to cheer. The moment felt surreal. Just days ago, her designs had been dismissed as outdated, laughed at by critics who couldn't see past the surface. But now, those same critics were calling her work visionary. The global brand's offer wasn't just a job, it was validation, and it came with full creative freedom, something she had always dreamed of. She glanced at the front row where her mother sat, eyes glistening with pride. It was her mother who taught her to sew, who believed in her ideas when no one else did. In the weeks that followed, Amelia's story spread across fashion blogs and business sites. Headlines like "From Mockery to Masterpiece" and "The Vintage Revolution, led by Amelia Voss," trended worldwide. Her old studio, once a cramped room above a bakery, was now a buzzing hub for young designers who resonated with her journey. She made it a point to mentor those who were overlooked, especially those with unconventional ideas. Her story became a symbol for anyone told they weren't good enough. And while the fame was unexpected, Amelia remained grounded. She knew trends would come and go, but staying true to your vision, especially when it's unpopular, was what truly left a mark. As she watched her team prepare for their first major campaign under the new brand, she smiled. They had once mocked her style, but now it was leading a movement. Not outdated, not forgotten, just ahead of its time.